Now, this show happens because of Cornerstone Business Solutions. If you've got a whole lot of process-driven tasks that you're just not getting done, or maybe you're doing them yourself, then I would seriously consider getting a virtual assistant through Cornerstone. You can book a free, no-obligation discovery call with owner David Warren now on 02 9083 6689. Hey, we're also supported by Web Central, who are there to help you optimise your business's online presence by creating highly effective websites, social media campaigns, and SEO strategies. Gotta love that. You can check out their exclusive listener packages just for you over at webcentral.com.au/Timbo. Today's guest is an ex-SAS soldier turned award-winning business owner. Once he jumped out of a plane only to find his parachute wouldn't, in fact, didn't open. Well, he survived, and now he's turned that into a business lesson we can all benefit from.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, walking the dog, driving to work, commuting somewhere. You're a motivated business owner and you are ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be, which is exactly why this show exists. It exists for no other reason. If it's your first time round, welcome. Don't be scared. If it's your 286th time around, welcome back. Love your work. Big show today. Got an ex-SAS soldier we're going to meet soon. He's now an award-winning small business owner. His name's Scott Houston, who shares 5 lessons he learnt from his time in the SAS that we can all apply to grow a better business. I share another low-cost marketing idea for you to implement immediately in the now incredibly popular segment, What Have You Got to Lose? I'll give you a hint. Today's idea is all about creating your brand story. And I'll give you 3 steps to doing that. Plus, we revisit a past episode in which my guest found herself crying in tears. Well, I suppose that's what happens when you're crying, right? In the car park, once she realised she'd bought a lemon of a business. That was a great episode. More on that later. As per usual, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. So, now by the time this episode gets posted, goes to air, if you will, I'm going to be in the Philippines with 9 listeners. Yeah, 9 motivated business owners on my 3rd Create Freedom Through Outsourcing tour. Looking forward to that. I'm going to have a whole week over there this time. The tour is only for 3 days, but I'm going to hang out at Cornerstone and see what's going down in the world of outsourcing, of offshoring. And I will report back any new insights or tips that I come across in order to help you on your outsourcing journey. So stay tuned for that in episodes to come. Coming up, I share another easy-to-implement marketing idea, all about your brand story. But first, let's get stuck in to today's guest, who is Scott Houston. He's a former SAS soldier with an unbelievable parachuting story. It's your worst nightmare come true, but he lives to tell the tale. Now, what's the SAS? I had to ask because, it sounds important, so I had to Wikipedia it. And what they say is it's a special forces unit of the Australian Army tasked to provide special operations capabilities in support of the Australian Defence Force. And this includes sensitive strategic operations, special recovery operations, special reconnaissance, precision strikes and direct action. Sounds tough, huh? Basically, these are the blokes with massive kahunas that do things that you and I wouldn't even think about. So after leaving the SAS, Scott went and started what is now an award-winning business called Executive Risk Solutions. In fact, it was the Telstra Business of the Year in 2015. And I've got to tell you, Scotty runs a very, very tight ship. What I like about him is his never say never attitude to getting things done, which has clearly come from his time in the SAS, and we're going to learn a lot about that and how we can apply it in our businesses. In fact, what Scott is about to share are 5 lessons he learned from his time in the SAS and how he's directly applied them to grow his award-winning business. So I started off this interview the only way I knew how. Scotty, I'm going to start with the dad joke. I'm going to get the dad joke out of the way. How many times did someone come over the walkie-talkie saying, Houston, we have a problem?
We have a problem. Yeah, we've heard it once or twice. So, a couple of times. But,
not you?
Yeah. No, not me, but, we heard it more than enough times.
Oh, damn. Hey, mate, welcome. Tell us, what is the SAS?
The SAS actually stands for the Special Air Service, and it's known in Australia as the Special Air Service Regiment, and it's the premier Special Forces unit in Australia. So they're the guys who get all the good jobs, the hard jobs, and quite often they're the last resort for the government in a lot of times with some of the harder problems to solve.
Tell us about these good jobs, hard jobs, an example of one that you were involved in.
Yeah, well, the regiment for the last 15 years has been constantly deployed overseas, and all you've got to do is Google the SAS, and you'll see the myriad of jobs they've been on through Afghanistan, through Iraq, East Timor, and I was fortunate enough to deploy to Afghanistan and several times to East Timor with the unit. So an amazing environment, small team environment, so a small high-performance team, with highly motivated and highly capable individuals.
You're not allowed to talk about specifics, are you?
No. We'll leave the specifics out.
Is what you just said as far as you can go?
Yeah, pretty much so. There is a lot of stuff that's out there that's that the military have released for the public. We've got Victoria Cross winners in Mick Donaldson and Ben Robert Smith, and their stories have been told now in quite a bit of detail. There's certain things that they'll release information, right, and then there's other things that they'll keep fairly close hold.
You go in behind enemy lines with the intention of not attacking but rescuing? Am I right there? I just want to get a really clear picture, because clearly what you've learned and applied to your business has led to success. So is that what you guys do?
Yeah, it's one of the roles.
Right.
That hostage rescue is one of the roles. They've also held for quite some time the counter-terrorism role. So for domestic counter-terrorism, and also that working behind enemy lines is it's changed a little bit now in the modern battlefield, because there's enemy the battlefield isn't really delineated the way it used to be in the past, but a lot of it is small teams, isolated, without a lot of support, and either hostage rescue or observation and surveillance.
Do you ever fear for your life?
Yeah, I suppose there were a couple of times. So the regiment operates at a really high tempo, and the jobs that they do come with a great degree of risk. The fatalities in the regiment, they've had more fatalities in training than they have in operations. The Black Hawk crash was an example back in '96, where we lost 15 guys, lost one of my best mates, and knew basically all the guys that died in that crash. And loss. You sort of sit back and you count the amount of friends that you've lost over the years, and it's sort of it's up above the 20s.
Tell me to shut up because we are going to get stuck into business in a minute, but I am fascinated and I think this is relevant. When you feared for your life, did you have the old "my life flashed before my eyes" type thing, or was it different?
No. I never had that, and even in training, I've had some experiences that
like what?
Were fairly close. Had a parachuting accident.
You're going to tell us about that shortly, aren't you?
Yeah.
Keep your powder dry on that. Excuse the pun.
But yeah, no, never really had the life flashing before my eyes as such.
Why'd you join the SAS?
It was always, for me, it was always where I wanted to be. I was 11 years old, and I watched a thing called the Iranian Embassy Siege on TV. Mm-hmm. And it was over in London, and I watched all these guys dressed in black abseil down the outside of this building and storm this building. They stormed the building and basically rescued the hostages and killed the terrorists. And 11 years old, I sat there and I said, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And I still got to this day the scrapbook I started collecting when I was 11 on everything I could find about the SAS.
What's that about, Scotty? Is that about being a superhero? Is that about adventure? You just like danger? What can you?
No, I think it's a challenge, and I think that's. And it's really relevant in business as well. There's certain people who are motivated by challenges, and it's one of the things that really does motivate me is the challenge. I love being told I can't do something, only to go and do it. But yeah, it's motivated by challenge, and that's that's me sort of thing, through and through. But and I think even with staff members and everything else, with our staff that we have here at ERS. The big thing I'm about is challenging them, pushing their boundaries and making sure they get that sense of achievement in what they do, because I think it's a great motivator.
Mate, you have so very softly, subtly segued into business. I've got so many more questions around SAS, but I might come back to them as we get through this. But let's talk business, because that's why you're here. And what you have done, what you've learnt in the SAS has allowed you to build Executive Risk Solutions, which is the business that you now run, a highly awarded business, a wonderfully successful business. Explain what's the elevator pitch for Executive Risk Solutions?
Yeah, ERS, or Executive Risk Solutions, we're a consultancy and service provider that helps companies mitigate risk across a really broad range of areas, all from the risks on the ground. So we can put the boots on the ground, put the equipment on the ground, such as firefighters, security, paramedics, all the way through to training the corporate teams how to deal with major incidents within their company or within their facility. So,
what's an example? To me, that sounds like something the government should be providing. I'm sorry, what am I missing there?
Yeah, no, this is basically for private industry.
Industries.
We'll help mining companies. We help and prepare a lot of the resource companies to deal with major accidents on their sites, fatalities on their sites. So we help them deal with the next of kin, how to deal with the media, how to how to focus on business continuity and get back up and running.
So, for example, right now, Dreamworld are under the pump because of the tragic accident that happened there last week. Is that something that you could have potentially got involved in? Exactly,
yeah, and that's exactly the sort of stuff that we do on the consultancy side. So, with, for example, Dreamworld, take them for an example, we would have helped prepare their team, so trained their team to be ready for an incident like that or how to respond. I'm not sure of Dreamworld's crisis management capability or what they had in place. But yeah, that's the sort of thing we do.
So you would have gone in there years ago and said, fellas, at some point you're going to be hit by a crisis like all large companies do with lots of staff and lots of moving parts. This is what you should do, right? You preempt things.
Yeah, put the procedures in place and then actually train the staff. Okay. Train the staff, because what the Dreamworlds, the management are going through now if they haven't been trained, and hopefully they have prior to this, I really feel for them. It's a really difficult thing to go through if you've never been trained, and all of a sudden to deal with that. It's hard enough with training, but without training, it's your chances of being successful in your crisis management are really, really pushed.
So starting Executive Risk Solutions, Scotty, was it just an obvious extension to being an SAS soldier? It was like, okay, I want to start my own business now. My skill set is to help people in the most extreme of situations. That's a business. Is that kind of the thinking process?
Yeah, pretty much so. And within the military, we deal very well with that crisis, with the unexpected. That's the environment that we work in. So that ability to think on your feet and is something that it sort of comes natural. Doesn't come natural, but within the military, it's what we've trained and what we've done for year after year. So it's just that natural step for us, that adaptation, and then taking that into business and using our lessons learned in the military to apply that in crisis management to assist companies.
So does that mean you just employ soldiers?
No. We've got about 107 staff, I think, at the moment, 107, 108 staff, and probably 50% of them are ex-ADF, so Australian Defence Force. And we've literally just started, only 6 weeks ago, a separate arm of ERS recruitment, which is just doing recruitment of ex-Defence Force, so non-traditional recruitment. So we're a big believer in trying to find the Army, Air Force, Navy personnel jobs in after their service. So we've done that. So we're a big supporter of ADF, but it's not all defence personnel.
Listeners, I'm talking to Scott Houston, former SAS soldier turned award-winning businessman and now owner and founder of Executive Risk Solutions. Scotty, let's talk 5 things that you learnt as your time as an SAS soldier that you've applied into your business that are almost what we'd call critical success factors. Let's start with you say that small business is just like parachuting.
Yeah, definitely. It was back in mid-1998, I was standing on the back ramp of a C-130's Hercules aircraft, and it was flying about 1,000 feet over the Indian Ocean. I was a water operator in E-Troop, 2 Squadron of the Special Air Service Regiment, and a week of parachuting was sort of culminating in our final exercise of what we call a parachute load follow jump off the coast. And a parachute load follow, or a PLF, is where we jump out with our boats all bundled up, land in the water, prepare our boats, and then go off and do our task. It had been a pretty uneventful week. We'd done about 8 jumps already, and our last jump, the final exercise, was taking place close to last light. And myself and a good friend of mine, Darren, who's still serving in the unit now, we were the first 2 to jump with our bundled up boat. As we'd jump out, we'd inflate the boat when we landed, and the aircraft would circle around and then it'd come back around and drop the rest of the patrol off. And as the boat rolled off the back of the ramp and Darren and I walked to the back of the ramp, a little bit of turbulence in the aircraft, and when you're jumping from only 1,000 feet up, so it's only really 300 metres that we're jumping from, you don't have a lot of time in the air. And I accidentally, with a bit of turbulence, I bumped into the dispatcher. Now, he's the gentleman, he's the soldier at the back of the aircraft that tells us when to jump. And bumped into him, and it accidentally pulled my reserve parachute, which sits on your chest, and it's spring-loaded. So I watched the reserve parachute shoot off my chest and out the back of the aircraft. So I basically went from 0 to about 120 knots.
Became a sail.
Which is about 200 kilometres an hour. I got ripped off the back ramp in around about a third of a second, I think it took for me to leave the back ramp. Ripped off, tumbled backwards as I came out. My main canopy then, because we're jumping a static line, which is where the main canopy's deployed for you, that then pulled up, so I tumbled back through the other way, came out under canopy, and falling sideways with all the rigging lines wrapped around my legs and my chest, and I
landed on the inflatable boat.
Yeah, I wish I did, but looked up to see both my canopies twisted around each other, so I was literally falling without a parachute. And I had probably about a third of my reserve canopy open, so sort of stepped into those drills that are drilled into you. Stepped into that straight away. Went to separate the canopies. It didn't work. And unfortunately it all collapsed on me, and I continued to fall. So literally I looked up at that stage, looked down to where the water was, rushing up at a great rate of knots, covered my head and hit the water.
No.
And fortunately for me, about 100 feet off the water, I had about half of my reserve canopy open, which slowed me down enough. So when I hit the water, I managed to survive, albeit very bruised and very sore.
Did you do a horsey or like a really good bomb or something?
No, just a straight up bombie, I think.
Straight up bombie. Right, so you've fallen 300 metres from a plane, correct?
Yeah,
into the water. How deep was it?
Yeah, it was out in the ocean. We were 20 k's offshore, so 20 kilometres offshore. But to leave a ramp at 1,000 feet, with a canopy, with a normal canopy, and go and do a normal parachute jump, you'll normally land between 34 and 38 seconds later, roughly. To leave the ramp without a canopy will have you landing in around about 9 to 10 seconds from 1,000 feet. And for me this day, when I jumped, I managed to land in 14 seconds. So,
Scotty, the small business lesson there is to bring a spare pair of underpants to work, or is it something much greater?
Definitely. And I suppose for me, it's stepping into business, and people always ask me what it's like to step into business after the military, and I sort of say to people, stepping into a small business, I put a lot of parallels back to that parachute jump, because business is, and stepping into that business, it's just like stepping off that ramp. It can be unbelievably daunting and not without risk, and it takes an unbelievable amount of commitment to step off that ramp. But once you're off the ramp, you're hoping and sort of praying that everything goes well. But it's that sort of that commitment to take that initial first step. And I always think that parachuting exactly the same as business. It's not for everyone. There's a lot of people that would rather remain on the ground and not take the plunge and parachute. And business is the same.
But when you do, it's exhilarating, right? And that's what I hope my listeners, who generally have all taken the step, and I know that a lot of them feel that exhilaration in a positive way. I think there's also a lot who don't feel that exhilaration, and maybe they're tuning in because they're absolutely shitting themselves.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And but it's also the parachuting. And just like business, you can train for it and you can prepare for it to give you that sort of greatest chance of success. But nothing will actually be like doing it for real.
And that's really interesting coming from someone like you, who I am guessing is organised to within an inch of his life, because that's what.
So,
yeah. To, like, are we talking a bit of OCD there, Scott, or borderline? On the spectrum.
On the spectrum. I'd probably say, just on the spectrum, a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah, well, I was just saying it's very reassuring to hear that come from you, because you can be planned to within an inch of your life. And if you always just follow that plan and don't be a little bit more flexible, then I think you're going to hit trouble often. Whereas you've managed to introduce flexibility despite your training. Yeah,
definitely. And one thing with with special with the SAS soldiers and any of the soldiers, we get this appreciation that we have, that we're these massive risk takers, that we love risk, when in actual fact
nothing could be further from the truth.
We're nothing further from the truth. What we do, we plan. And we look at every single option. We'll worst case an option, because we believe if we can deal with worst case, then everything back from there just becomes easier. Yeah. So we worst case it, because a lot of the time, if it goes wrong for us, then we're pretty much so on your own, and it's pretty catastrophic for it to go wrong. And that time in planning is just never wasted.
Yeah, love it, mate. Okay. Next learning. Small teams, big impacts.
Yeah, it's the military and the SAS, in particular, have and part of the reason they've been deployed overseas so often, recently is I think it is a small amount of troops to deploy and put at risk, but a maximum impact that they can have. And everyone's always said to me, how do you choose that high performance team? And we have basically, I think, the three rules are selection, education, and empowerment. And when you look at selection, you need to make sure you've selected the right people, and the regiment are very, very thorough on selecting their people. And if you get that step wrong, then it can all go. Then it really, you can't operate as a high performance team if you've got someone in there who's not operating at the same level. And I say to a few people, and it's upset some of the HR professionals in the world that I've spoken to. And we have a saying of if you want to have a high performance team, and this isn't in all business and work environments, but if you want to have a high performance team, then you have to, what we call is, shoot the Bambis. And the Bambis are the nice people in the business who actually don't achieve anything, but all businesses have got them, who they're the nice person, who they do this and they're always helping out, but everyone else is always doing their job for them. And you sort of sit back and, when you look at it, all they do is drag the rest of the team down because of the fact that, the rest of the team have to make up for their shortfalls. Now, in a high-performance team and in a small high-performance team, we believe you have to shoot that Bambi and get rid of Bambi and get another high-performance member in there to get the best out of your team.
So this is interesting because every business owner I speak to will identify people as being their number one point of, stress, a reason that the business is not moving forward. What's your secret sauce to identifying great people to employ?
Yeah, as I said, I'm a big believer in we select people that are motivated by challenges, and then we challenge them, and we ensure that we challenge our staff day in, day out.
How? Give me an example of how you challenge a staff member in the last week.
We put all of our staff that are in the field, we put them on what we call work capability assessments. Mm-hmm. So it's like a fitness test, very similar to the military, but it's they've got to be able to, because they're small teams in remote locations, they've got to be able to do their job and they're held accountable to achieving that job. And that's biannual. All of our staff go through work capability assessments. We give our staff a lot more ability, I suppose, to chase some of the bigger contracts and run those contracts themselves. So,
do you flick the odd staff member a grenade every now and then? I use that in a kind of metaphorical way, but catch this champ and see what you do with it.
Yeah, we do. We focus a lot on our future projects, and we force is probably the wrong word. We really get everyone thinking about the future and what the next big thing is, and our future projects really, they have, all of our business unit managers have to deliver on some KPIs on innovation and future projects, and identifying those future projects for us and diversifying what we do. We recently just went for a major government tender, which cost us in excess of $300,000 to put the proposal in, which is a lot of money for a small business.
To put the proposal in?
Yeah, just to submit the proposal.
Wow. Just on that, because, again, lots of businesses submit for tenders. Did you see any of that? Did the government kind of subsidise that, or did they suggest that that's what you're going to need to spend to submit this tender? That's a lot of dough.
Yeah, that's a lot. And we were the only Australian company in the tender process, and by far the smallest company in the process. The other companies that we're up against probably spent in excess of $2 million to put their proposals in.
Wow. Do you know if you've won yet?
No, we were unsuccessful, so we've got our feedback coming up, which is a bit of a shame. But, But it's a big learning curve. And
what was the big lesson?
Well, just in the way we constructed the tender, the way we went about. We'd never put a tender, together, of that size before. 18, I think it was about 18 or 1900 pages in the tender, 4 months of work. And
mate, who's going to read that? Who's going to read 1900 pages?
Yeah, you got to love the government, don't you? But what, and it was our business unit managers that put that together, and it was, for me to let go of the reins on some of that as a bit of a control freak was a huge thing. But we stretched all of our business unit managers and everyone involved in that tender. They did an amazing job on putting it together, and I'm so proud of what they've put together. Even though we weren't successful, we learn a lot about pricing. It's a $60 million a year contract.
Right.
Working through the finance for that and everything else, we all really learnt a lot. So it was a $300,000 cost, but it was a big investment in our future and what we're chasing in the future. 5
learnings that you've taken from the SAS into business. We're up to number 3, turning brick walls into hurdles. I like this one. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. When I first left the military and went and worked for one of the major mining companies, I was pulled aside at one stage by one of the senior managers, or the senior manager, and he said to me, Scott, don't ever change your attitude. And I said, what do you mean? He said, and it was a comment that he made, and he said, look, where everyone else sees brick walls, you see a hurdle. And he said, don't ever change that. And what we found in industry is everyone, quite a lot of the time, I was really shocked at how people are finding a reason to stop. And it's, the smallest reason. It's like, I'm not sure if they don't want the extra responsibility or don't want the chance of failing. But I was always confronted with, no, we can't do that because of, A, B or C. And I'd go, well, no, we can get around that and we can work around that. So, so let's keep going. And it's that improvised, that military, basically that military saying that all the soldiers would have heard before is improvise, adapt, overcome. Mm-hmm. And it's big. Within the SAS, there is no one else to give it to. So if we get presented with a problem within the Special Air Service Regiment and they say, can you guys go away and do this? We'll say yes. We'll walk away, look at it and work out how to do it. So
it's a classic example of you create the problem by saying yes and then worry about how you do it afterwards. So what do you say to the small business owner listening who every day is confronted by some brick wall that, as small business owners, it's our business, it's our future. So I would argue that many of us look for the hurdle, but sometimes you just give up. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, it's it's a challenge, and I go through that stress as well, and we've it's been a hard year for a lot of businesses the last 12 months. We've along with the tender, we've diversified in a few other areas, and we've spent probably close to $1 million this year in diversifying, looking for other options. And looking for where our business can continue to grow, because of the fact there are a lot of brick walls within the industry at the moment.
But when you see that brick wall, what's your mindset? Like, is it immediately you just go, well, there are options? Is that right? Is this stuff learnt, or are you just born with it or not?
There has to be options, and I think the best way to look at it. From my point of view, in a business, when those brick walls are put up by a client, we try and put ourselves on the client side of the desk and look at the solution from them. You've got to be solutions focused, and you've got to keep innovating. I think to have one solution and only one solution in business, it just really limits you to what you can sell. So I think it's that innovating. And the challenges of those brick walls force you to innovate, force you to think, how do we do it cheaper? How do we do it better? How do we sell our product so we get in front of, so it's our product selected over our competitors and everything else. Rather than sort of sitting back, just wondering, just thinking, geez, we had a great business, but everything got too expensive and no one wanted to pay our price, so we shut our door. I think it's that innovation, and that's really key to a successful business.
Did you have? I had a chat to a fellow Ant Morell a few weeks ago. He's the founder of indoor playgrounds called Bounce, and he's actually put on. He has a full-time person in charge of innovative thinking, because I think a lot of businesses pay lip service to innovation, and innovation simply doing things differently. Is if you want to kind of dumb it down. Do you have a formal process? Do you have a full-time person on it? How does innovation show itself within Executive Risk Solutions?
Yeah, it's our business unit. I mean, we've got 5 business unit managers, and each one of them, as part of their KPIs and in our quarterly reporting, have to come up with the innovation and our future projects. So they have to come up with 2 concepts, and it can be as left field as they want, but they have to come up with 2 concepts each quarter in their industry and in their business unit for innovation. So that's one of the things. So we look
at a KPI around it.
Yeah, so we've got 10, at least every quarter, we're discussing as a strategic management group in our business unit managers at least 10 innovative ideas that one of them, that they all think is worth putting forward. And we look at that and look at, where we go from there.
Love it. Scotty, number 4 critical success factor is all around luck. Is luck something that you just kind of hope for, or tell us about that?
Yeah, no. For me, I used to believe. We were really fortunate to pick up our major contract, our first major contract with Roy Hill Mining. And Roy Hill have been the most amazing client for us, and it's been great. It's been the I suppose the foundation for our business and for those that know Roy Hill is owned by Hancock Prospecting, so the Reinhardt family and everything else, and we have great admiration for people like that.
So is it all about luck getting that, or where's luck play into that?
No, I think it's I looked at it and said, I used to always say to people, I'm really lucky that we won this contract, and it wasn't until I listened to Stephen Bradbury, the ice skater, talk about winning his gold medal. And he said, the 4 guys fell over in front of him. And he said, was I lucky to win that gold medal? And he said that one thing that he said to me was, or he said to the crowd was, you can lose a gold medal in 5 seconds, but you can't win a gold medal in 5 seconds. To win a gold medal takes years and years of hard work and dedication. And I suppose that's what my wife, who's my partner in the business, turned around to me and she said, this is why you need to stop calling it luck, because you're fortunate to be that you've won these contracts, not lucky. You're fortunate because you've put yourself in the position, you've maintained the standard. You've done 15 years of service within the military. That's what's given you the grounding to actually put yourself in a position to be fortunate. So that's why, and it's the same in business.
And I don't think we pay enough attention to that. I always say to business owners, celebrate the small wins and the big wins. We tend to celebrate the big wins more than the small, but often we can put it down to luck or don't give it the kind of attention they deserve. But, if we were all to stop right now and, look back on the last 5 days of business, there would be something that we should each pat ourselves on the back for, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%.
And not put it down to luck.
Yeah, exactly. Luck's buying a lotto ticket or luck's putting a bet on at the casino. That's luck when you've done no work, no effort, and it's just that's when you're lucky. When you've put in an effort and you've done a lot of work and you've done that groundwork and you've put your heart and soul into it, it's not luck. It's you might be fortunate, but you're not lucky.
Were you lucky falling out of the plane? Did luck play a part in that? Must have.
Yeah, to a degree. I suppose I was lucky that it went wrong on a water jump. If it was a jump onto land, I probably, the safety officers that were there basically said, look, there's no way you would have walked away from that if it was a land jump. No. So maybe a little bit of luck in there.
Now, number 5, Scott, the value of people.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the military things that really sort of resonates with me. And I don't know if you've ever listened to one of the TED talkers, a guy called Simon Sinek.
Yep.
He talks about it, and he talks about watching some video footage from a helicopter crewman's GoPro on his helmet, where they loaded, some American Special Forces guys loaded a wounded soldier who'd been shot through the neck onto the helicopter, and the patrol commander, or the boss, basically as he loaded him on, covered in blood, shot through the neck, bent down and kissed him on the forehead before he ran back into the battle to continue to fight. And Simon Sinek sort of says then, he goes, where do we find bosses and leaders that actually care this much about their people? Where are these people, and are they just in the military? And why is it? And he sort of says in his talk, are they better people? And he comes to the conclusion, it's not the better people, it's the environment that they're in, and it's that. Yeah, and it's being able to rely on the people that are side by side with you, and knowing that that you're all achieving something together. And a huge one for me is, and Simon says it in his talk, and the value of people is that in the military we reward people with medals for the people who are prepared to sacrifice themselves for the greater good of others. But in business, quite often we reward those who are willing to sacrifice others for the greater good of the company or the greater good of themselves. And you've sort of got to question sometimes just how wrong we have it sometimes.
Yeah. So true. Do you think also, just to finish on that point, we talk about, I see a lot of businesses where, and I've been in those businesses where we operate in silos. There's sales over there and marketing over there and HR over there, and we all live within our four walls and never talk. Whereas I imagine in the military, a silo would have been, again, excuse the pun, shot down in a second.
Yeah, definitely. There are the silos in there, but a lot of the time the silos are around operational requirements. But yeah, you've got to rely on everyone, and there's that the analogy of team. Sort of together, everyone achieves more. And we're a big believer in that. You can't really achieve just as an individual, and you've got to, I think, finding a way to join all of those teams together and get them on that common purpose and that common goal is really powerful. Yeah.
Totally. And there'd be a lot of business owners, again, we're all control freaks, us business owners, and that ability to delegate, the ability to outsource, the ability to sort of say, what, I can't do it all, I should focus on what I'm good at, can only lead to a better business. Hey, Scotty, love those 5 critical success factors, mate. I've got 5 quickie questions for you. You ready?
Sure, no problem.
They're very bizarre, mate. I haven't done this before. Just testing it. Number 1.
Okay.
What's your worst habit you'd love to get rid of?
The worst habit, checking my mobile phone as soon as I wake up or before I go to bed at night.
Oh, mate, rookie.
It's when you own your own business.
Oh, I know,
you're tied into every single thing it does.
Man, there's so much research on why you shouldn't do that. How's your sleep then?
My sleep is horrendously bad. So,
oh, wow. Surprise. Number 2, what are your showers like?
What are my showers like? I've got a huge, big, double-headed shower with a beautiful view over the river.
Mate, you would have a routine, again, within an inch of its life, correct?
Exactly. So, yeah.
Do you condition each time, or just you just go quick shampoo? Be no conditioner in your out.
Massage. I've got short hair, so it's always just quick shampoo. It's always the 2-in-1 because it's quicker.
Oh yeah, the old 2-in-1. What a great invention! The 2-in-1. We don't see it a lot, but I remember when it came out years ago, and I thought that's just smart. What's the one thing you've never told anyone? Not because it's a secret, but because you've just never told anyone.
But when I started my business, I was so far out of my depth, it wasn't funny.
Good on you, mate. Hey, I like that, because I reckon, being an ex-SAS guy, you will have to be the tough guy. People say, Scotty, that's Scotty. He's a soldier. But beautiful, you're out of your depth. Thank you for admitting
Massively.
that.
Yeah.
What's your favourite article of clothing and why?
R.M. Williams boots.
You love the boots, do you?
they're our standard dress of the day for all of our guys in the office. So the R.M. Williams boots. So yeah, definitely.
They go forever. And finally, what's the one thing you believe that almost no one else does?
Freo will win a flag.
Freo for overseas listeners. It's a very average football team in Western Australia. Hey, Scotty, interesting, mate. I never had an insight into the military and in particular such an experienced unit as the SAS. So thanks for taking us behind the lines. I'll finish with that pun, and all the best for the future.
No, thanks very much, Tim, and thanks for your time. And hopefully, someone gets a bit out of it and and likes the story.
Well, there you go, team. Scott Houston of Executive Risk Solutions. I do enjoy asking those 5 random questions at the end. They're proving to be quite revealing. We see another side of our guests. I've only done them for the last couple of episodes, but I think I will continue them. Do you like them? Love to know. Hey, coming up, I share my top 3 attention grabbers from that fireside chat with Scott. But first, here's a word from 2 businesses that want to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Support for this show comes from Web Central, who know exactly what Google want. Verity Ma, their Chief Marketing Officer, spells out how to please the world's biggest search engine.
Every time Google comes back to your website and crawls it, they need to see that your website has been changed, updated with fresh content and new imagery. For example, say if you're a restaurant, you want to update your menu every week and provide some specials that are on your website, give some customer testimonials. Now that fresh new content is what Google's looking for. So if you just build your website and leave it for 4 years, which let's be honest is very common in the Australian market, then you're not actually optimizing your website for your visitors or for your search engines like Google.
Web Central, building and managing beautifully effective business websites that make the big G very happy. Check out webcentral.com.au/Timbo for exclusive listener offers. Support for this show comes from Cornerstone Business Solutions, an Aussie-owned, family-run outsourcing business based in the Philippines, who can reduce your running costs by up to 90%. I asked founder David Warren to share one killer tip that would ensure any business owner's journey into the world of outsourcing was a successful one.
The secret is building a small team. And you don't have to have a big team. 2-people team to get started. And then once you've got a small team on the ground in a structured environment, so that small team helps in regards to HR, payroll, IT. Once you've got that small team on the ground and you learn how to make that team productive, then you've got an ability to scale wherever you want to go.
Cornerstone Business Solutions, where teams mean business. You can book a chat with David today at cornerstonebusinesssolutions.com.au/consultation. Righto, my top 3 attention grabbers from our time, I should say, with Scott. Number 1, jump and enjoy the ride. I like that attitude. You could apply this mindset to your marketing. Have some fun with it. Try new things. That's what the new segment of this show is all about. What have you got to lose? Where I share a marketing idea that you can implement immediately that you might not have thought of. So have some fun, jump and enjoy the ride with your marketing. Attention grabber number 2, shoot the Bambis. Now, it sounds like soldier talk, right? Whilst it might sound a little bit harsh to some, and hello to all you animal activists out there, I think the key point is to move those employees that are getting in the way of growing your business. And that may mean simply giving them different responsibilities, not necessarily getting rid of them altogether. And attention grabber number 3, I loved how Scott revealed that when he launched his business in those early days, he felt out of his depth. Jeez, how reassuring is that to hear when G.I. Joe is out of his depth, hey? Makes us mere mortals feel a little bit more normal, right? Well, they're the three things that grabbed my attention. I'd love to know what grabbed yours. The show notes have been quite active. The episode with Michael Gerber a couple of weeks ago, in particular, getting some great feedback. So I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/340 and you will have the opportunity to tell me what it grabbed your attention in this episode.
Have you got to lose?
Alrighty, it's time for me to share one simple yet effective marketing idea that you can implement immediately, today, if not tomorrow, but no later, in the next 24 hours. An idea that's not going to cost you a fortune, if anything. Today's idea is free, got to love that, and that might just generate you more awareness, more inquiry, and ultimately more sales. Hey, we all want a bit of that. Today's idea is to tell your brand story. Now, who doesn't love a good story? You know, in business, telling a good story can lead a potential customer to pick you over one of your competitors. Why? Because it emotionally engages them. That's what stories do. As a business owner, it's important that you take the time to develop a compelling brand story that you can share. It's an essential and really essential part of building your reputation and helping people understand why you do what you do and how your business came to be. Don't think people won't be interested in it, team. Done well, they will, and it will pull them in like a moth to a flame. Telling your brand story is also a great way to build trust and remind people that at the end of the day, your business is managed and run by real human beings. Hey, it's a wacky concept. You know, I'm astounded at how many businesses, especially in the service industry, don't do this. Don't create that emotion. People buy from people, team. Here's a great example from the Four Frogs Creperie in Mosman, Sydney. This is their brand story, which they have on the wall, on their website, on their menus. It reads as follows, and I quote, "We are four Frenchmen who came to Australia and loved it. We found beautiful beaches, a perfect climate, and wonderful people. The one thing we couldn't find, excellent crepes. In France, we love our crepes. Sweet for dessert and savoury, we call them galettes, for a delicious meal with a glass of cider or wine and some good company. They're always made to order and are natural, fresh and delicious. Australia, you gave us so much, we give you our delicious crepes." Unquote. There's a bad French accent at the end, hey? Lucky I didn't do it for the whole story, but that's a great example of a brand story right there. So here's my 3-step process for creating your brand story. Number 1, spend an afternoon thinking about what led you to starting your business, who was there to help you, and how you felt. Jot down a few pages of notes and create an initial outline. Step 2, decide how you want to tell your brand story. Some business owners choose to create a visual timeline that illustrates how the business came to be. Others like to tell their brand story on video or with a combination of words and photos, a bit like a blog post. Write the first draft and gather any supporting materials you'd like to include, like quotes from others, old photos and footage, old logos, etc., etc. And then step 3 in creating your brand story is to publish it on your website. Print it on a poster, hang it around your shop or office, share it via social media, put it on the back of your business card. Get it out there. Now, as always, there'll be links in the show notes for the resources I mentioned here. Plus, I'm going to include a couple of brand stories done on video in a blog post over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/340. They're absolutely brilliant, so I encourage you to have a look at them. Now, if you'd like help implementing any of the ideas I share in this segment, go ahead and join the Small Business Big Marketing Club, where I'll personally support you on your marketing journey. So, what do you got to lose? Well, that almost wraps up another episode of the Small Business Big Marketing Show. Next week, you and we're going to meet Stephen Byron, whose family decided to buy a very rundown Canberra airport a few years ago, spend a lazy $2 billion on it, and turn it into a world-class airport, which they've done. What's interesting is all the little 1%ers they included in the new design that make it insanely consumer-friendly. We can learn so much from this chat with Stephen. Hey, a while back, I chatted with Karen Justice, owner of the highly successful Just for Pets franchise. But it wasn't always that way. Here she is talking about the moment she realised she'd bought a lemon.
Oh, I remember it so vividly. It was about 15 days after I bought the business, and I had decided my first port of call was to visit all the suppliers that previous business owner had negotiated with, and I had seen probably 8 or 10 suppliers while I was in Sydney, and it was a Friday afternoon, and for the 8th or 10th time they had said to me, "What did you do? I hope you didn't spend too much money because this business is a joke." I got out into the car in the car park of the supplier and burst into tears and went, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And but I had something. I'd paid money for it. I realised I had to turn that around because I just couldn't throw away that money. And I spent 12 months literally reinventing it from scratch, changed its name, changed its ideas, changed the way it operated, and that's where I am today.
Oh, that was such an inspiring story. She absolutely turned that business around, and she tells exactly how she did it. You can hear that interview plus hundreds more over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, or I would love you to hit pause right now and subscribe free on iTunes if you haven't done that already. Hey, be sure to check out Cornerstone Business Solutions if the idea of a virtual assistant excites the hell out of you. You'll find them over at cornerstonebusinesssolutions.com.au, and you can book a free discovery call with owner David Warren to find out how they can help you. And remember, you now know what Google wants in order for them to rank your website on page 1. It's not hard, but does require some time. So why not hand that responsibility over to Web Central? You can check out their 3 exclusive listener packages over at webcentral.com.au/Timbo. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, tim@timreid.com.au, or you can hit me up on Twitter @TimboReid. If you love the show, tell another small business owner or 10. I'd love you to do that. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for listening in. Love your work. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.